Ag PhD full episodes and more are now available on Acres TV, the newest ag platform connecting you to fields of information. Look for us on watchacrestv.com.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk a little about herbicide vapor pressure and what that is and why it's such a big deal for farmers.
First of all, when we think about vapor pressure, there just aren't that many herbicides that we're worried about. So I don't want to get anyone alarmed here thinking, oh no, we're talking about the vapor pressure of every herbicide that we're going to spray. No, there's only a few that we've got to be concerned about.
Okay, so two different things here that we're talking about. Number one, pre-emerge herbicides. Most of the pre-emerge residual herbicides that farmers will spray, like what we use on our own farm, we're not worried about at all. It's not going to vaporize up in the air. It'll lay on the soil surface. It doesn't get degraded by sunlight very easily. So for example, in corn this year, we're going to spray Harness. In soybeans, we'll spray Valor or Authority along with Metribuzin. No problem with any of those kind of herbicides.
Or something that you use at home. For example, pendimethalin gets used in a lot of the weed-in feeds that you'll spread out on your lawn, trying to control crabgrass that could come up later. You can lay that out there. We aren't worried about vapor pressure.
Okay, so the only three we're concerned about, trifluralin and sonalan. Those are both soybean herbicides that can be used in some other crops. And then the old Eradicane, which Eradicane's gone now, but there is Eptam today. That's Eradicane without the safener for corn. So anyway, if you spray Eptam, trifluralin, or sonalan, you have to instantly incorporate them. In other words, get them down into the soil. Otherwise, they will vaporize. You will lose them within, a lot of times, just a few hours. So that's a really big deal.
And an example of something that really vaporizes quickly would be gasoline. You put a little bit of gasoline in a pan and it's a hot summer day, it's just all going to be gone in not very much time. The same thing can happen with these herbicides. They could just vaporize and be gone.
Okay, so we talk about the pre-emerge herbicides, and those are really the only ones we're concerned about that we can at least think of off the top of our heads.
And we're not really worried that they're going to go up in the air and hurt anything.
No.
They're just going to disappear and you're not going to get the weed control you paid for.
Right. Okay, now there's a separate thing, and that is what we call volatilization later in the year. So again, it's vapor pressure. This is post-emerge herbicides, and it's really dicamba and 2,4-D. And quite frankly, I can't think of anything else that I'm super worried about landing on the target and then picking up and moving off target. That's volatilization, and that's a big concern because we don't want to harm, when we are spraying as farmers, we don't want to harm neighboring crops.
Now, fortunately, on the 2,4-D side, the new Enlist products, like Enlist 1, they've pretty much completely taken care of this vapor issue. So you can spray the new version of 2,4-D choline, spray it, it'll stay where it's put, and that is great.
So Enlist 1 in Enlist crops, or Freelix in non-crop areas. But then you get to dicamba, and unfortunately any of the new dicambas, they still have a lot of the same problem as the old dicambas, where there is volatilization. It lands on target, picks up, and moves. So how do you solve that problem? Well, you either don't spray the dicamba, or you spray when the wind is out of the right direction and is going to remain out of the right direction, or you just spray super early before any neighboring crops are up. So there are some ways to manage around that, but it is something you have to manage around.
So spray early means early on the calendar. Now, when it comes to daytime, you want to avoid air inversion. So you don't want to spray late into the evening or very early in the morning when it's still out. That's where you could have some more issues. If you've even got just a 3-mile-an-hour breeze, that would be fine. You know, you don't have an air inversion, then you can spray it and much more safely keep it in place.
All right, so once again, when we talk about vapor pressure with herbicides, it's two kind of separate conversations. The pre-emerge herbicides, we're worried about, hey, we got to get them into the ground right away, and there are only a few that we're concerned about there. And then post-emerge, it's dicamba and the old 2,4-D that we worry about volatilization, picking up and moving after it's landed on target.
Well, we want to get the most out of these herbicides because we have tough weeds to control, like our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?